You are back with us on America's Forum on Newsmax TV. We're happy to have you. I'm J.D. Hayworth.
And I'm John Bachman. J.D., as the midterm elections loom here and Obamacare is anything but a success, or big question mark, I guess is the best way to describe it, Democrats are scrambling to rally the party base. A new Associated Press poll shows that Democrats and Republicans are in a dead heat for the 2014 midterm elections. 36% say they would vote for Democrats compared to 37% for Republicans. But as recently as January, Dems beat out the GOP on that same question by a margin of 39% to 32%. So could this spell bad news as the Democrats desperately try to hang on to control of the Senate? Joining us right now to talk about this is corporate pollster Doug Usher.
And Doug, we are very glad to have you with us today. And we know that polling is both an art and a science, but the science behind politics and campaigns really hasn't changed. Identify your voters and make sure they get to the polls in greater numbers than your opponents. So with Obamacare out there, with what we're seeing, I guess, really come to fruition this week, the equal pay debate, when there really is no debate. Is this all part of a process to get the Democratic base engaged for the midterms?
Absolutely. If you take a look at what both sides are doing, you see them each engaging on the issues that are most likely to rally the base. So as you suggested, on the Democratic side, you see more emphasis on equal pay, issues to try to generate more support and turnout among women. On the right, among Republicans, you see more of a push on Obamacare, because what you see when you look at the polling is that Obamacare is in fact a base rallying issue for Republicans more than it is for Democrats.
Doug, let's drill down a little bit on the AP poll. And here's a distinction, what we call in the biz a crosstab, I guess you'd say. The AP poll,
That's right,
finding that registered voters who say they're interested in politics choose the Republicans right now by a margin of 14 percentage points over the Democratic Party. I realize we're talking about November, but with that kind of crosstab right there, does that really put the Dems at a disadvantage?
I think there's a lot of things, including that put the Democrats at a bit of a disadvantage going forward. It's pretty clear there's more enthusiasm among Republicans than there is among Democrats, which is noted in that crosstab you just showed. And also there's some other atmospheric issues that are problematic. The president's approval rating, while not desperately low, is in the mid-40s, mid to low 40s. And as also you said, Obamacare brings out a lot of excitement among Republicans who really want to change things and want to change what happened over time. But I'd also caution that it's a bit early to make predictions about what's going to happen in November. But if you were to make odds bets right now, it certainly would be on Republican advances both in the House and the Senate.
Doug, as we were talking about this, and you outlined a litany of challenges confronting the Democrats, you mentioned President Obama and his favorability ratings. And I can recall, for purposes of full disclosure, my first reelect going in with a poll about I guess it was about 6 months out, where my favorables were down to 43%. My pollster was saying, uh-oh, we got real trouble. Now, we were able to rebuild that and win a tough re-election campaign in 1996, my first re-elect. But my question for you, when do the bells and klaxons really start to go off? Is there a magic number in the 40s? Is it 42%, 41%? Where do we know the president has a real problem, and by association the Democratic Party, if his popularity remains right there at about 40%?
You know, you make a great point in comparing where it's been over time versus where it is today. And let me bring up two past elections, which is when the last two presidents were in their 6th year. If you take a look at George W. Bush, when he was in his 6th year, his approval rating was about 5 to 7 points lower than where Obama's is right now. And as you probably recall, he lost the Senate during that time. And then if you look back to 1998, when Bill Clinton was in his 6th year, his approval rating was in the 60s. And he was the only 6th year president to gain seats in modern political history during their midterm in their 6th year. So taking a look at where Obama is, he's somewhere in between the two. And right now, predictions say, you know, probably better than 50-50 odds that the Republicans take over the Senate. So in terms of your point, I'd say being in the low 40s and falling below that, that would be of serious concern for Democrats if Obama's approval rating is there.
Well, Doug, we heard so much after 2012 about the demographic disadvantage that the Republican Party was in. Of course, that's somewhat mitigated by the fact that President Obama won't be running in these midterm elections and won't drive people out to the polls. But has it been totally has that been nullified based on what you're telling us here and this Democratic or the Republican advantage we're seeing right now?
Well, I think what you're going to see is the people most likely to turn out to vote across race, across gender, are probably going to be a little bit more Republican than what you saw in the 2012 election, the 2008 election. I think the point you bring up that the long-term trends, if things stay the way they are, do not look good for Republicans. But that does not mean that they can't have success in this midterm. Now, looking forward to 2016, those problems, I think, will resurface. But in the short term, I don't think those demographic trends are working against the party that's out of power in the 6th year of a presidential term.
Now, Doug, you cited two very different midterm experiences for Presidents Clinton and George W. Bush. But by and large, as you reference those, does a midterm election essentially become our constitutional republic's version of a vote of no confidence or a vote of confidence in the executive branch? In other words, does this basically become a referendum on the president and his policies and by extension those of his party in your view?
I think what you're going to see is Democrats are going to say it's not that big a deal and Republicans are going to say it's a referendum on the president. You know, to be honest, the way things in Washington have changed over the last few years, the day this election is over, win or lose, President Obama is going to be seen as much less relevant. It doesn't mean he doesn't have the same power as he does as president and can't still get quite a bit done. But everyone's going to be looking forward to 2016 at that point as you watch the first Republicans and Democrats start taking trips to Iowa after Election Day.
Doug, we appreciate that. You're evoking the imagery of lame duckness, but your comments are anything but lame. We appreciate you so much. Look forward to having you back to talk about the polls as the campaign continues. So, what does it hold for the future, John? We'd love to hear from the folks out there.
Well, I think a lot of folks say that lame duck status has already started, but you can weigh in, reach out to us on social media. Our contact info right here on the screen. JD and I will be right back after this.